copyright type things. Key of G, related topics, end times, Advent, All Saints, Church Triumphant, lesser festivals. So the one that I kind of want to take a look at is the Advent topic, as we're not quite in Advent yet, but we're just about there. And so Advent being that time of preparation, of looking forward to when Christ comes. Of course, right now, as we are on this side of Easter, we are now looking for Christ's second coming. And so we are able to combine some of those thoughts, I suppose. But as we take a look at this hymn, I wanted to take a look at, I guess I deleted the verse numbers, but this is verse 3 and 4 of the hymn. Our gospel text from the book of Matthew, which is also our Bible study text, is a text that is so important that we keep our eyes on, according to the text, the words, on the Master, or that is on God, the kind of the heavenly side of the parable versus the earthly side, you might say. Because if we get that mixed up, we're going to completely misread what that parable is all about. We'll get into that in a moment here. But verse 3, their God shall from all evil forever make us free. And that is perhaps a key thought for us this morning, because God is the one doing the action. God is the one giving the talent in the parable. God is the one that is going to say, well done, good and faithful servant. So he makes us free from sin, the devil, adversity, sickness, pain, sadness, trouble, cares, fears. And this is perhaps what we call the great exchange. Or maybe, and this is my word, but maybe we could call it the unfair exchange. Look at all the stuff that we give God, things like adversity, sickness, troubles. And what does he give us? Heavenly gladness. Or, to use the text of the Scriptures, he gives us his grace, his mercy, his forgiveness. Sound like a fair exchange to you? Not really. Usually in exchanges and bartering and going to Walmart and paying, you got to give equal to what you're wanting, right? Although I suppose many of us, especially in Walmart type concepts, we might put all our stuff up on the cash register table thingy, whatever that's called, and then they give you the amount and you're like, what? No. And so we might argue with that price. And so certain parts of the world have more of a bartering system so that you can haggle over the price. When I was in Israel many years ago, that was a bartering type system. And so I brought up my chess game that is in my office that all the kids like to play with right now. And I said, I want to buy this to the shop dealer, I guess. And he said, I want 50 shekels or whatever it was. I was like, yeah, no. And by the end of it, I whittled them down to 10, I think it was. So, so the unfair exchange or the great exchange here. So, verse 4, in that fair home shall never be silent music's voice. Now, it's perhaps well documented that when it comes to music, I forgot to get in that line. And I have absolutely no talent other than pushing the play button. And even then, it's probably debatable. But this idea of going to heaven one day and music not being silent has got me jumping up and down for joy. While I might not be able to play music or sing, I still love and appreciate music in all the different ways. With harps and lips forever, and I'll also be able to sing. better and better. And I won't hurt anybody's ears. With hearts and lips forever, we shall in God rejoice, while angel hosts are raising with saints from great to least. A mighty hymn for praising the giver of the feast. Dr. Brighton at the seminary, he's now with the Lord and getting to do all this stuff. He was my professor for not only Greek, but also for the book of Revelation. And many, many times, he would have us say, okay, you'd be like, Mark, translate verse 1. So I'd translate verse 1. Now verse 2. So I'd translate verse 2. And this format would get on to like 4 verses or so. Then he would just take over. And he'd translate the rest of the pericope that we were studying. And it was almost a sermon, a proclamation of what was going on. And I don't know how many of us students just kind of put our pencils down, sat back, and listened, rather than trying to busily scratch out a few notes and so forth. But he would always say that, now I think this was just his thoughts. I don't think he has really anything to back him up on this, but he was thinking that the book of Revelation was Handel's inspiration for writing the Alleluia chorus, is it? And so forth. But, did I say that right? Well, yes, we can. For every time I say something, there's always going to be 15 yeah buts, I suppose. But he was just the great Te Deum, the great music, or the great song in Revelation. He just found that to be, whether it was Tolkien or Lewis or any of the other apologists of the era, he was confident that Revelation was their source material. So wouldn't that be nice if the scriptures was everybody's source material? Maybe we would have no more problems in this world. But then again, Christ would also be here. So, all right, Matthew 25. This is oftentimes called the parable of the talents. Kind of like I mentioned a little bit earlier this morning in service, that might be a misconception to call it that. At least that's my opinion. Because it's really not about the talents. It's really not about us, but rather it's going to be about the master, God, teacher, or last week's theme, the bridegroom, and so forth. So let's take a look at it. For it will be like a man going on a journey. So right away in Greek class and so forth, whenever the word it appeared, we'd always have to define what is it referring to. So if you remember from last week's text, verse 1 to 13, it was talking about the 10 virgins. 5 of them were ready to go. 5 of them were not. And it was talking about the kingdom of heaven. So I'll put forth to you that it is referring to the kingdom of heaven. For the kingdom of heaven will be like a man going on a journey. All right? So we might ask ourselves, what kind of journey is he going on? And in a lot of ways, maybe that's not quite as important, but it's always kind of fun to think about, I suppose. I often wonder if God wanted us to have more detail on something like that, would he have given it to us? Probably so. At any rate, he's going on a journey. That is to say, he's not here. He's not with these 3 servants. He's elsewhere. And so we begin to see a certain level of trust, perhaps. That to one he gives, 5 talents, and another he gives 2 talents. And finally, the third one he gives only 1 talent. Now, these talents, which is a word for the money system back then, versus their ability to do something or not to do something. But these talents is more of the money system. But a talent itself is actually a large sum of money. One talent would be equivalent to about 16 years' worth of wages. So if you multiply that by 5, you get quite a bit of money. Maybe it's, various commentators and stuff that I was reading was likened this onto receiving the lottery or winning the lottery, especially if you got the 5 talents. And so maybe your mind starts asking yourself, if I won the lottery of 2 point whatever billion dollars it is, what would you do with that money? It might be a fun exercise for the moment to think about. If you won that lottery, after taxes, probably spend half of it giving it to Uncle Sam, I suppose. But the other half, which is still a whole lot more than what we might make in a lifetime, what would you do with it? Any ideas? Give it to the church? All right, nice. I like it. Taxes? Pay off student loans? What else? Pay off mortgages? Pay it forward? All right, share it. Good.
So the idea is to help somebody.
All right.
It's not just give it away.
So,
Because give it away to me is like, give it to my son. That's just giving it away, never to be seen again. I shouldn't say that. He's not here to defend himself. But you would want to help somebody or something with this gift that you could give.
yeah, sure.
Positive.
Okay. All right, so help somebody else, family member or complete stranger maybe, whatever your, yes ma'am.
We had some furniture I needed to dispose of and get new furniture, and I couldn't sell it. Nobody wanted to buy it.
Uh-huh.
So our church was having a yard sale. Now, it was just leather and wood furniture. I just, too much money. So I decided to give it to the church for the yard sale. And I felt better about it because I decided I was giving it to the Lord to multiply.
Okay.
So the talent is like investing in God's work.
There you go. All right. Yes, ma'am.
I would give it so that we could have a bigger parking
Oh,
lot.
all right, all right. Make some improvements at the church or maybe even your own home. Put that toilet out in the middle of the bathroom so you can work on it easy, not have to crawl underneath that, do gymnastics to get to that lug nut. All right, so always a fun exercise that if you won millions of dollars, what would you do with it? But back to the text here. To one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, to another 1, to each according to his ability. Now this is kind of a fun phrase to think about, to dig into, unpack. That's what my professors always like to do. To each according to his ability. What, to borrow Luther's phrase, what does that mean? To his ability. To some degree, and then maybe this is one of the first slippery slope thought processes of why we need to make sure we keep our eyes on the master, not on the individual or the talent, because we can easily and quickly make this all about what we have to do. Amy.
Different skills have different prices of their tools,
Okay.
different prices of their materials coming in.
Okay.
So someone who's doing welding and is doing, household repairs or machine repair, they're going to have different costs than someone who's cooking food or making clothes.
Okay.
So I would say that would, the person who's making
Yeah, so according to the talent or what's being done, maybe the talent in this is not the money talent, but the service talent, ability talent is going to be different and so forth. Nita? Is it gift or talent?
You know, we have gifts that God has given us,
Mm-hmm.
and we have talent. And the gifts are the study word, right?
Yeah, sure.
The talent is to make you living. Am I wrong?
Make you what?
Make you living.
Oh, living. Okay. Well, no, you're hitting on an extremely important part of this whole thing, in that what is the talent doing, perhaps? Yeah? Sure. Okay. Lois?
The master obviously knows his slave. He knows what they're capable of. He knows them maybe better than we know.
That's right. And that's another extremely important part is because there's a lot of trust going on in this parable. That the Lord trusts the individual to appropriately use their talent.
It's the Lord's property. So he's entrusting with whatever it is to them. But like you said, it's all about the master.
Yeah.
And
Well, and I've heard this word a couple times now from various people, but it is the talent given is truly a gift. It's not that one person is more qualified than the next. It's not that somebody has put in X number of hours to earn that wage. Rather, to one he gave. We have to focus on that verb, that action there. He gave. So, like at Christmas time, you give a gift to your child, to your spouse, to a member at church, a friend, or maybe it's the angel tree and you give a gift to somebody you don't even know. The point of it is that you have given a gift with no expectation of anything coming back to you. You might enjoy seeing the smiles on the child's face as they open the present. You might enjoy seeing the emotion of the spouse as they open their present, and so forth. But the key point to take a look at here is that it is a gift. These talents are a gift from the master to the servant. So,
is it a gift? It says it's his property.
where do you see this? Entrusted to them his property. Okay? So,
He's giving them something within his kingdom. Yeah. It's not a permanent situation. It's still master and
well,
property.
indeed. And as we take a look at the rest of the parable, we'll see that when he comes back and they return property, the gift, it uses a economic framework to explain this, a math concept that to one he gave 5 and he doubled it basically and gave it back and so forth. But yes, perhaps the next part of this is to identify what the gift is and what is the expectation when the master comes back.
It's not a gift. It's his property. It's the master's property.
Okay? It's a loan.
The servants are the master's
Mm-hmm.
And the servants never own the kingdom. They get to have leadership or whatever it is over much later on. It gives them more to do, but it's still the master's property. They're still the master's servant. I tossed that out as a brainstorm. So bounce that back at me.
I mean, it is an interesting thought there. Is it a gift or property? And so,
In the original, what does the word "they" there entail? So, in other words, is this the idea of entrusting or give responsibility for, or is it the idea of a gift? So, in the original language, what is that word?
well, I don't know the exact, or at the moment, I don't know what the Greek word is. I can certainly research that and give that to you if you will, if you'd like.
You gotta tell them what to do with it.
Okay?
Not at all. Not anywhere in there that you tell them what to do with it. He entrusts it to them. It's almost like a test, you know?
Yeah.
He doesn't say, bury it. He doesn't say, make money with it for me, buy your wife a new, he doesn't say any of that stuff. He just entrusts them with that property.
Okay?
Go
Yeah, but
for
they
it,
are,
do
they are
it,
servants,
no.
though.
Pardon?
They are servants of
Yeah, that's
the
fine.
master's
Yeah,
property.
but they work for him, right? He knows them evidently pretty good, because some he gives 5, some he gives 2, and the other gives 1, because he knows if he gives that guy that he's gonna give 1 5, it's really guaranteed. He knows his people, they work for him, he knows them.
Exactly.
And
And
he
he worked for him.
Yeah, he entrusts them. Entrusted, that's like you said, trust, that's
Yeah.
a big word.
Marisa?
I'm thinking, just for us, I'm like, everything we have, God gave us, right? Whether we have the job or money, like, in the present now. And I'm thinking in the end, he's probably gonna be when we go to heaven, saying, what did you do with everything I gave you? Right? I gave you all these things, resources, whatever. What did you do with what I gave you? And some people buried it, some people didn't do anything with it, some people multiplied it, some people probably built a church, you know, worked for the Lord and trying to get more souls. And then some people didn't do anything.
Yeah. In a lot of ways, I think something that would help clear this up for us is to take a look at the original definition of a parable that we've kind of come up with. That a parable is an earthly story with a heavenly meaning. So, what part of this is the earthly story, and what part is the heavenly meaning? The earthly story, I would put forth to you, is the financial, economic concepts that are going on. That the master entrusts his property, his gifts, to his servants, which definitely is kind of almost sounds like a wage type of concept, doesn't it not? I'd like to work for this master to get 5 years or 5 talents, 6, that's a lot of money to be paid. But then when we start to take a look at the heavenly side of things, and I think it's on the next slide and so forth, that we kind of start getting into this idea that the master comes back and he wants to see what the servants have done with his property, which was a gift to them. He gave to them his property. He sees that the first 2 have gone out with this talent, this gift, this property, and have shared his word with other people. Whereas the third one basically takes his word, buries it in the ground, so that he can give it back to him when. So that third, I'm getting ahead of myself here a little bit, but that third servant does not trust his master with his gift. And so it is not that the master is wanting his gifts back, his property back, but he wants to see what has been done. Just as maybe you want to see what that child does with your present, what that spouse, you want to see your spouse wearing perhaps that necklace or whatever it is, that shirt. So it's not that the master, I read this, that the master is not wanting his property back, but perhaps he's wanting to see what the servants have done with it.
Third interpretation might be that God has gifted us with certain capabilities to serve Him here on earth, so that when we die and go to heaven and stand before Him, He says, how many souls have you brought to heaven? How many people have come to God because of your actions and your faith?
Indeed, there's perhaps an element in that, but the thing about that to be careful of, though, is that our ability to go to heaven is not based on how many people, we convince to believe in Christ. Does that make sense? But rather, God may task us to share the Word of God with people, but ultimately it's going to be the Holy Spirit that convinces them of giving them that saving faith. So we have a couple minutes left. Any other questions? Bob, did I kind of bounce that ball back to you?
I still don't think it's a gift.
Okay.
I still think it's the master's property and it always will be the master's property. Even though he has made them stewards over that, and he calls for an account of what they've done, it's still his property. The increase comes back to the master
Okay.
because it's still his, which in a way relieves us of a thought that we do something to get into that kingdom, because we're already in the kingdom, and the Lord has properties that we're a part of.
Okay. All right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Sure. Okay. Ready?
I think that the parable is so much about the master, and the third slave didn't really know the master because he said, you were going to do this and you were going to do that. Obviously, did not know the master and that this gift, this entrusting to what it meant, and that's what did what it did.
Mm-hmm. Marisa?
Getting back to, I think it is a gift, because it goes back to the one when they did the day's labor and someone accepted, but the master doesn't have to give you anything, but he chose to give you, and you accepted it. So I think in that case, it is a gift, and he didn't have to give you anything. But
Yeah.
he did. And you can choose to take it or not take it, but it's still a gift, it's still something that you wanted.
Sure. And that's perhaps, I see a bunch of hands going up, but I think before we could be talking on this for a while, but it is 10 o'clock, so let me kind of wrap this up a little bit. This sounds like, is it a gift? Is it property? Is maybe something that I can offer to you for your devotions this week? But the idea, we kind of got into basically who are the servants and what is the talent when, Maritza, you kind of pulled us back to this idea, and Lois, you as well, that this is about the master. The master gives us this gift, and through the calling of the gospel, we are called to, I don't know, it's hard to use this word because there's so much baggage to it, but basically accept this gift. The third servant does not accept it. And so basically when he's shown his master what he has done with the gift, which ultimately you got to define what is that gift, I'm going to put forth to you that the gift is his own son, Jesus Christ, who suffered, died, and rose again, that third servant did not believe in him. And so therefore, as the text we would eventually get to, is called wicked and slothful and evil and is cast out and so forth. So keep this thought in your devotions this week between gift and property. Define what the gift is, making sure that you remember who it is that gave it to you, gave it to the servant, and ultimately to us as we make application to today. All right. It is 10 o'clock, and I saw children already coming out. So let us go ahead and close with the Lord's Prayer then. Our Father, thanks for coming.